Hey y'all, it's your girl Toyia T, and we are here today with a great show in store. We have a couple that's going to talk to us about making it last. And before we start the show, I have to put a shout out for the Cincinnati Bengals. They came, they saw, they conquered. It wasn't a win, but hey, we were still one of the top teams in the NFL, and I just want to say hats off to the Cincinnati Bengals. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests. We have the Smedleys here with us today, and I'm going to have them just do a brief introduction of who they are and how far they've come. Come on in. Hello.
Hey,
Andrea and LeShaun, I want you guys to just do a brief introduction of who you are and kind of how you guys came to be a couple.
okay. Well, what's up, Toya? Thank you so much for having us on the show. Really appreciate it.
We're
Um,
glad to have you.
yeah, and again, my heart breaks for the Bengals too. I was really excited. I thought we had that one, but we didn't. So
Hey, we're going back next year.
right,
We'll make sure we got tickets. We're
yeah,
going in the stadium because we're not going to have to do the walk of shame.
right, exactly. So my name is LeShaun Smedley. This is my wife, Andrea Smedley. So I'll just give you a little bit of background about myself, and then I'll turn it over to Andrea. So my name is LeShaun Smedley, born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. Went to Sycamore High School, graduated from Kent State University. Actually met Toya working at Kroger. So I was with Kroger for 12 years. Just I'm born and raised Cincinnati, Ohioan. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. Andrea?
And I'm Andrea Smedley, Sean's wife. And Sean and I work at Fidelity Investments. I went to Mount Notre Dame High School. Sean went to Sycamore. I graduated from UC, so I'm a UC Bearcat.
Go Bearcats.
Yes, go Bearcat. And I worked for Fidelity right after I graduated from UC. So I've been there 22 years.
Wow. Both long-standing careers and both long-standing Cincinnatians, right?
Yes.
So
Born and
tell
raised.
us a little bit about how you guys met. So it's been how long since you?
We've been married for 18 years, and
Wow, that's a long time.
we've been together for a minute. I mean, in a good way. So
Right.
anyway, the craziest thing is, we grew up right down the street from it. Well, not right down the street, but we grew up pretty close to one another, and we didn't meet until we was in our 20s, which is crazy. I
Okay.
never even ran into her. But my story is, I let her tell her side of the story, how we met. But my side of the story is, I went to the gym. I don't know if y'all remember Bally's Total Fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I walked into Bally's Total Fitness looking for my dad one day, and then I seen her, and I was like, "Oh, I need to get a membership."
So you weren't even coming to work out. You were coming to look for your dad.
Right, I was going to look for my dad,
Okay.
and I didn't. I think I found him at some point, but I was too busy looking at her. I got me a membership. It took me a few months to actually approach and talk to her. I think that's what
Okay.
she always says. And then, we've been together ever since. So that's my side of the story. How do we meet?
So Andrea, before you tell your side, I'm curious. Were you actually working out and did you like stalk the time that she was there to know like when she would
No,
be coming
I'm
back?
not that kind of guy. Like, I'm not really into details. That's so we might have to talk about that later on in the conversation. But I wasn't really stalking her, but I was checking her out.
Okay. But you were trying to come at the same time. Because I feel like
Oh yeah,
timing is always important. And if you were coming at a certain time and
that's
she was
true.
coming at a different time,
Right.
it's
That's
like you
actually,
gonna
you
miss
know what? That's so true. You actually are right. Maybe I was stalking her a little bit. So I did. I looked at the time and I was like, okay, I'm gonna come back
at this
probably every
time
single day
on
at this
these
time.
days because she
Yeah,
was here that
exactly.
time.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep. So that's how
Andrea,
we
what's your side?
So yeah, I agree with Sean. We met at Bally's, and I would say Bally's back then it was like a small community, so everybody pretty much knew one another. I had seen his dad around. I'm very focused, so I can go into a place and I don't see anything. Whatever my goal is, I'm there working out. And I did notice Sean, and I thought it was kind of odd. Like he hasn't approached me because usually as new guys would come in, I would get approached. But I noticed Sean was just very kind of laid back and would do his thing. And it actually took him about 3 months
Oh,
to approach me. And that actually was kind of attractive to me because I was trying to get the days he was coming into the gym. And I took kickboxing back then. So then I noticed the trend. So I started buying my little kickboxing outfits the days that I felt, he would be there.
Yeah.
And then the day he finally approached me was an off day. So that day I remember I had on like red biker shorts, black shirt, didn't match. My hair was in a bun. And I saw him and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm looking for the exit. So I was like, today is not the day.
not the day.
And of course, I'm sorry.
You said you weren't feeling it that day.
No, I was totally not prepared. And so that was the day he came up and he asked me about my ab workout. And the funny thing is I had never done abs. That was just not my thing. And I looked at him and I was like, this guy's got like a 6-8 pack. And so I knew that was just
thank you.
His,
so he was fit. He just wasn't coming to Bally's. So you were already working out, LeShaun. You just weren't going to Bally's.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to be an athlete, so I was just always running and doing something. So I was just always in shape back then. Nowadays.
Now things change a little bit with our career and the kids and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I will say, but one thing that attracted me initially is Sean just didn't approach me, right? He was very, he kept coming. He wasn't in my space. He respected my space. He totally was not my type, just kind of looking at him. He had an
wait a minute.
So
what?
Who is this little
okay, first of all, I never heard this story before.
I thought, who is this little shorty with an afro and glasses?
He had an afro, Andrea.
Oh, he had an afro.
I lost my hair because of her.
That's what attracted me to Sean. He had an afro with little twisties, but he was real laid back, and I thought, okay.
Hey, Toyia, you didn't even know back then. I was.
That's hilarious. To even think about you with an afro is just funny to me. I can't envision it. But so you guys have been married for 18 years, right? And I'm sure you probably get it often where people just want to know, is there any secret sauce to staying married that long? Is there any advice that you would give that has made your relationship last?
I don't really think there's a secret sauce, to be honest. I think it's like when we first got married, you just really gotta learn each other. You know what I'm saying? You really do. Because I remember coming home from work some days, I would have to tell her, like, yo, I need at least 20 minutes to myself to wind down. You know what I'm saying? It's all about communication. It's about learning each other at first. It's learning like your likes and your dislikes. It's just like being in a relationship. Marriage is just the same thing. You just got to learn each other. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't think there's really any secret to it. And then just open lines of communication. I got to do a better job at that. Working stuff out with her, telling her, hey, honey, this is coming up this week, instead of saying, hey, this is coming up in 20 minutes. I'm out of here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So make sure you're communicating up front. And just, I would say one of the biggest things is when we got married, I would say probably within our 5th or 6th year, we did love languages, learning each other's love language, and just going off of that. Like if your partner or your spouse, whatever, has a certain love language, try and meet that. Like hers is acts of service. So I always try to commit myself to doing something around the house or looking some sort of responsible, you know what I'm saying, around her and around the house. And then I think she also likes, I always try to compliment her throughout the day or, throughout the week or whatever. I always tell her she's the number one wife. She won the Wife of the Year award. I try to say that every day. Or obviously I like to say she's beautiful and all this other stuff, but you know what? You gotta edify your spouse. You gotta just be upfront with them and be honest with them. But don't get me wrong, marriage and being in these long relationships is not, peaches and cream all the time. We do get into some spats every once in a while. And sometimes you just got to swallow the pill and just say, hey, look at yourself and just make sure you continue to communicate or smooth it over or whatever. So
Right.
I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff you got to do, to be honest.
Don't let your ego get in the way, right, of having the
Right.
conversation that needs to be
Exactly.
had. Andrea, any tidbits that you would give that you feel like are secret sauce or, ways to make it last?
Yeah, so I would say knowing what you're looking for before you go into a relationship. So for me, before I met Sean, I had a daughter and her father got killed. So I had went through some things. And so I knew kind of the lifestyle and what kind of man I was looking for. And for me, I wanted somebody who had a relationship with God. I also wanted a man who was educated because as a single mom, I, got my education. So that was important to me. And I wanted a family man as well. I wanted somebody who wasn't drinking out, in the club. I wasn't trying to change anybody. So as I met people and I, before I even made that commitment to, hey, let's try to get to know one another, he had to meet that criteria, right? Because that was going to be the foundation of our relationship. And so Sean, when we met, he was like really active in the church and he was like a youth, helped out with the youth and he was educated, very family oriented. He wasn't out there in the club. So knowing what you're looking for and before you get into it, instead of kind of just going off of what you see or maybe, whatever, living a certain lifestyle, thinking that that's going to hold the relationship together when, really it's you guys against the world. So y'all have to be a team and have to be on the same page. And when you go through life and, we have 3 kids now. So as you start to add kids into the picture, things get more complicated. So to me, it's really having a core foundation, not compromising. And love is, it's not all about feeling, it's a decision every day. You wake up and you decide, I'm committed to this relationship. I'm committed to my vows, right? Because there's some days I'm not going to feel like going through the motions or doing whatever, but because of my commitment to God and Sean, that new day is a new opportunity to work through whatever we may be going through.
Absolutely.
And the whole 50-50, one thing that's always stuck with me, my pastor said is, it could be 80-20, right? There's some days where I may be 80 and he's 20 or vice versa, but we have to be willing to pick up the other person's slack when it's just, and be able to communicate that and not ask questions, right? But be able to just work with one another and pick up wherever we need to.
Absolutely. And I one thing that I heard you say is knowing what you want. I think what's important about that is that you didn't have this long, exhaustive list. You had 3 foundational items that you're like, these are deal breakers for me. And I think that's important because a lot of people come into looking for a relationship with this exhaustive list and the person doesn't exist and they're not offering what's on their list. And so I think, to your point, knowing what you want, but also being realistic about what you want and how you're asking for it and being who you are that you're trying to achieve with the other person, right? So showing up in that way, I think is important too.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, that's I feel like that's one of the most important things is you have to have, even though it's good to have, people say opposites attract, but you really have to have some similarities or at least some goals and objectives that are very similar. Because if you was somebody that's here and you trying to go up here and they're already tapped out, I mean, I just feel like you're just going to be butting heads for a long time. But we've helped each other grow. I feel like since we've been together, I mean, shoot, we used to live paycheck to paycheck, but, helping each other grow in our careers and our personal lives and friendships and all kinds of stuff. Like we literally are, neck and neck when it comes to that type of stuff.
And what kind of advice would you give? You know, if you have people out here that are looking to be in a long-term relationship or considering marriage, what advice would you give of things to do prior to looking at marriage and then prior to maybe making a commitment to a long-term relationship?
So we went through like, what was it? The premarital
marriage ministry.
Yes, like a pre-marriage ministry. So just to open up the communication lines, right? They already had kind of this criteria thing to go through. And it really helped us to kind of see, okay, are we on the same page? Once we get past even the things that are important, and having that dialogue, right? Can we work through this? If I want kids and you don't want kids or whatever, like for us, fitness is extremely important. And we both knew that going in. So to this day, I have my fitness days. Sean has his fitness days. The kids could have crazy schedule, but when it's his time to go to the gym, I don't say anything. When it's my time, he doesn't say anything, right? We make it work. So that open communication, you know, what are you willing to compromise? What are you not willing to? If there's a class, take a class. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, take a class, learn, because you got to learn about each other. Because I really believe that open line of communication is so important, right? You got to understand what you both really want out of life. Like, what are your goals? Like, here's my goals. I want to do this. I want to move to this city one day. Are you willing to do that? I love to travel. Yeah. Do you want to travel 5 times out of the year? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to understand. I like going to church. Do you want to go to church every Sunday with me? I mean, those things are really important that people, I don't think, really ask those questions when you're dating or when you're in a relationship or when you're thinking about a long-term relationship. If you want to be in a long-term relationship, it's a long-term relationship. And you got to understand this person likes A, B, and C. Can you handle that? Right. Or this person is annoyed with X, Y, and Z and you love it. Like, can you handle that? So it's just, you know, you just really got to understand your partner and understand what they're about and how does that fit in. And obviously you're going to have somewhere in the middle where, you know, where you guys are going to, you know, there's that gray area where you both need to, you know, just come together and say, all right, we're going to do this together. But yeah, just open lines of communication is very important. Learn each other. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's about it.
And family, I would say too, like,
oh yeah, know your family. Like, is her family cool? Right. Her family was cool. So it was
like the family background and you know, the culture.
Yeah.
And is it going to mix instead of getting all emotional and tangled and then finding out, you know, your in-laws don't like you or it's going to be a problem because you don't want to do Sunday, you know, Sunday dinner over there every Sunday.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that.
I think it's also that piece of like being genuine about who the other person is, not this fake it till you make it situation. Right. Because just like Andrea said, she's not trying to change anyone, right? Because if you go in trying to change them, then all of a sudden you're going to find that they're not who you thought they were because they were trying to be something other than, you know, who they were. I mean, you may change a little, you know, little things, but that core foundation of who you are has to be what it is. It can't be some, you know, mythical setup that you're trying to be something that you're not, because at some point the real you is going to come out, the real person on the other end is going to come out, and then it's going to be a disaster.
Right.
And I will say, like, even though we had like the core is, you know, we're on the same page, Sean and I are very different, right? I used to call him my butterfly. So Sean has no concept of planning. He has no concept of time. You know, it could be a Wednesday, and if the kids want to go to scene 75, he'll take them to scene 75. It's way past their bedtime. Or ice cream, or my kids will have candy, you know, before they eat dinner. I'm very like methodical. I'm a planner. You know, everything has to be detail oriented. I have to know the next step. So we're very different in that aspect. So we have to continually, even 18 years later, that open communication, right? And there was a point where it's like, hey, I'm not trying to control you. This is just my nature, right? I need to have a better understanding, because if you're doing these things, then you know, it's not working.
Right.
We make it work because he's learned to communicate, and I may have to ask him 5 times, to where I would prefer if I ask you one time, just to circle back and give me an answer, right?
Hey, Toyia, you got to remember,
It's not that
I was one of those
complicated.
dudes that I ain't even, like, when we first started dating, I would lose my cell phone. I didn't know where it was. And she would, I don't know.
He just goes with the flow, and that works with him. Like, he could go to Kroger and be gone for like an hour, and I'm like, how many friends did you meet? Like, do you have a sign on your forehead? Like, he makes friends everywhere.
Everywhere he goes.
We went to some concert, and the line was like
Dave Chappelle
show. The line was wrapped around this arena. Like, we were not getting into that show. I asked Sean, I said, go find us another way to get in. This guy makes friends with these people at the front. They literally wanted to put Sean on his shoulders to get me to the front. He got us to the front door, and people were mean mugging us, whatever. But he made friends with them, and they were all surrounding us to get us up to the front. But that's just the type of guy he is, to where I go in the store, I have my 5 items. I'm not making eye contact. I'm in, I'm out. But it works, right? It works for us.
I'm here to have fun. My life is okay.
Life is about fun.
Right.
Around every corner, right?
Right.
So one thing that intrigued me, and LeShaun didn't even know this. So I'm really big on like astrology and the stars or whatever. I've studied it for years, and I have this theory that if a wife had a good relationship with her dad, she typically looks for someone like her dad. And we got to talk, and I'm like, LeShaun, you're the same sign as your wife's dad, and she's the same sign as your mom. And so we got to dig in a little bit more to try to figure that out. Do you feel like you were looking for someone like your dad, Andrea?
So I have 2 dads.
You don't want to ask that question, Toyia. You don't want to ask that question.
No. Sean is in no way, shape, or form.
I'm in between both of her dads. So her real dad, well, never mind. I'm more like her stepdad, her dad that raised her, because he's actually fun. He's cool, but he's like her, like type A, but he's fun. Like, he can make friends anywhere. He's just a cool dude to be around. Like, me and him, we go golfing together. We do all kinds of stuff together, right? But her real dad, I mean, I like him, but
he's from Grenada.
Yeah,
so
he's from the islands.
He's from the island, so it's a different culture. It's a different the way they do things.
And he's a doctor.
And he's a doctor.
So
here in Northern Kentucky. So I have a close relationship with both of my dads, but the dad that raised me is white. And so, my mom passed away when I was young. So I was raised by my white stepfather, my 2 white brothers, and that culture. And then I have my West Indian father, who again is totally different. So yeah, I would say he's kind of in the middle, but I definitely wasn't looking. That wasn't my story as far as looking for someone like my dad, only because that would be more like me. And I've dated someone who's like me, and it just didn't work because we were both too much alike.
2 A-type personality. What about you, LeShaun? Do you feel like you looked for someone like your mom?
I don't know. I mean, I was looking for, because you know how Andrea said she was at a point before we started dating, she was like, I got this criteria, right? I was in the same mindset, because I was, when you was younger, you was doing stuff or whatever. And I was really trying to just be, I was trying to change my life, to be honest. And that's kind of what I was looking for, was someone that, had these certain characteristics. And that's what I got. I would say she is kind of like my mom, but my mom's like me. Like, we just like to have fun. We don't do nothing. We don't do no calendars, nothing. We just go with the flow. But she's very motherly, like my mom. That's what I would definitely say. Like, I love how she is with my kids, with our kids. That's what I really love about Andrea. She's great with the kids. She keeps us in line. My mom kept us in line, because if I didn't have my mom, we would be, I don't know what we would be doing. We'd be me and my brother would be a mess. But yeah, so I think she's got definitely a lot of qualities like her, except the the
The structure.
flying by the wind. Yeah, the structure is just, that's what's different.
Gotcha. So we have about 4 minutes. Any parting words, things that you thought, I really want to make sure people know about this, or if there's anything about love languages, anything that you want to share as parting words for how to either get into a successful relationship or how to make it last.
I would just add on to the love language. That's extremely important. Like you said, I'm acts of service. So for me, if he fills my car up with gas, like he knows, like he'll take the kids, he'll do the dishes. He does these things because he knows that I get stressed out, and that's the way he shows me that, he cares about me, and that helps. And with him, it's affirmation. I'm still working on that because I'm just not good at that.
18 years later.
18 years later, but I know his love language, and he reminds me continually that, I need to keep working on that.
Right.
But I would just say, again, knowing what you want. What are you not willing to compromise? What are you willing to compromise? Talk about your visions, your goals. If you can take a class or anything, and know your family and really get to know one another before you intimately get in, start to go down that path, because then your emotions and everything are already tied into the relationship, and it's hard to separate and really see to make clear decisions.
Yeah, and for me, I would just say you really have to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with your partner, your spouse, and you got to be realistic. Just like Andrea said, it's all about communication. So much of relationships is about communicating to one another. Like, you got to communicate with one another. And then for us, I mean, the number one thing is we got God in our life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know where everybody else is on it, but that's the number one thing for us, is we put God first in the middle of the relationship, and that's what helps keep it glued together, just to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. It's not just fighting for the two of you, but it's also fighting to make sure that you're doing what God would have for you, because I think timing is so important, and he is in control of everything, right? We like to think that we have a plan, and we like to think that we have it organized, but in the big scheme of things, God is ordering our steps so that we can be right where we need to be. One thing I want to just talk about real quick is, do you think that your life purpose would have been different had you not married each other? Like, do you think that it tied to your life purpose?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I got 2 great kids. So I was raised, I love my family, my mom and my dad. But, looking back on my life, I feel like there were some things that could have been handled differently. And I feel like because of her and these kids and the way she's helped me grow personally, spiritually, whatever, I feel like I'm instilling that stuff into my kids and giving them more stuff, not physical and financial stuff, but just in general, like confidence, whatever. I'm feeding it into my kids, and then also feeding it into the community, which yes, I really believe I would have been on a different trajectory if I was not with her. I'll probably have moved somewhere else and found some, who knows what. But I do believe I would have been on a different trajectory in a negative way if I didn't marry Andrea.
And I feel the same way. I mean, before I met Sean, before my daughter's father had passed away, I was definitely on a different path, but I knew at that time with that loss that it gave me time to reflect and what was really important in life and in a partner, and what purpose and legacy did I want to live and strive for. And I found that in Sean, and together, we hold each other accountable. And like you said, we put God first. So for sure, my path would have definitely been different.
Well, we appreciate you guys sharing some tidbits with us, spending your evening with us at the Plug with Toyia T. I'm sure people learned a lot, and I want you guys to have a great evening, and we might have you back in the future.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for having us.
Have a good night.
All right, take care.
Today's episode of The Plug is sponsored by the following companies. At the platinum level, we have CET, a PBS station. CET is your home for the arts in Greater Cincinnati. At the silver level, we have the Stadium 513. Get in the game with the Stadium 513, a sports bar located at 8021 Hamilton Avenue, just south of Mount Healthy High School. Stop by every Sunday during the month of February for a chance to win a free wing basket. And last but certainly not least, at the GOAT level, Def Boy Records presents a birthday bash for Cincinnati's living legend, Def Chris. The event will take place on February 26th at Esoteric Brewing. Tickets available at Hard to Knock, Exclusive, and Heritage Glen Cleaners. The Plug thanks all of our sponsors for helping us keep you connected.